Canary here, and in this video I'm finally showing you the finished product, the Galleria Nazionale dell'Umbria's website, which we launched at the end of June 2022 when the gallery also opened its new refurbished galleries with a new hang and so on, and we had a beautiful party. It was great. But I must confess to you that it's taken me this long to record this final video because there's a lot that should have happened on the website front that hasn't happened. And I feel that this is actually an interesting learning moment for all of us because it's a real life example of what can happen, and unfortunately happens a lot with clients, especially in the case of big institutions that do not have a dedicated department in-house that deals with a site and that need a lot of education and that have a lot more going on. In the case of this gallery, the whole of the staff from March onwards, so I'm talking about March 2022, the new gallery was opening, the new hang in the refurbished galleries was happening on the 30th of June 2022. So you have to imagine a very old building. I'm talking medieval. The original building that this gallery is hosted in was built around the 1200s. So you have to imagine very, very old building with incredible amounts of rules and regulations that they have to follow when they build, when they do any refurbishment work. On top of that, take into account that they also did new ways of hanging the paintings that involved really, really difficult technical structures. They were extraordinary because now the paintings can be moved from the wall and they can be cleaned and looked at without needing to unhang them. All technical stuff that is hugely important and that took up the whole of the staff's attention, because also I'm sure that if you've had any renovation work in your own house or anywhere, you'll know how many pitfalls there are and how many things that happen all the time that you hadn't taken into account and that delay you. So this meant that obviously the design and development and content team were a little bit left to our own devices for a long time. And since then, it has not got any better because they have the museum internal staff have been completely absorbed by all the activities of the museum. So there are a lot of things that should have happened that didn't. There are a lot of things that shouldn't have happened and did. And so the website is not exactly what we had in mind. I am happy to report that quite a few designers have told me that they're using the site as an inspiration. So that's fantastic. I'm very happy about that. However, when I look at it, unfortunately, as we did it, I am sharply, acutely aware of the things that I wish were different and are not. However, I am going to start from the positives. Now, this is the homepage, which makes the most of these new photos of the paintings that are called, the technology is called gigapixel. So they are incredibly detailed images that allow you to see the painting like never before. It's extraordinary. When you see them in the gallery, you've got the painting on the wall and you can see that, but you can get to a level of detail that you would not be able to get to even if you were on a ladder and you had a really powerful magnifying glass and you were able to look at it that way. So fabulous. And obviously, even though this is not the homepage that we'd planned a homepage that was much more. I can show you one of the PDFs that we got from the Figma originally. So in my opinion, the homepage is just the first place that people go to in order to find out where to go next. So in our project, in our plan, the homepage simply gave a number of other options of where to go next. So the next exhibition, the next book, and an advanced search. This was just a proof, obviously. But what the gallery wanted, and you need to listen to the client, the gallery wanted to have a beautiful image of one of their paintings. We had initially excluded this for a number of reasons. We looked at other museums that did this. One is the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, and we came to the conclusion that actually full bleed images that go over the whole of the page, are not good for usability for a number of reasons. One of them is that some people may find it difficult to scroll down. Also, let's bear in mind that in Italy, in rural areas, and sometimes in city as well, the internet isn't brilliant. So an image like this, even though our developers are fantastic, they're really amazing, but some people, it may take them a while to download the image. So those were the reasons. However, the client has a really good point. We are in the business of images, of artwork. It's all about the visuals, so we want this, and that's fine. You have to listen to them. What I am obviously, from the point of view of the accessibility, not delighted about is that the menu is barely visible. You should always, so if you scroll down, this happens, and that's great. Now you can read it, but it's almost as if in order to be able to read the menu, you have to scroll down, which is not ideal. So I would have done it differently, and I had a different recommendation that included the image as well as the menu. And then the decision was to go for a hamburger menu on desktop as well. We thought a lot about it, and I am in line of principle against it, and our initial proofs didn't have an hamburger menu, but in the end we went for it because if you code it correctly, one of the arguments against hamburger menu on desktop is that it's not SEO friendly and it's not accessible. But if you do code it correctly, then it is all of these things. So we went for it because I trust 1,000% the developers that coded this site. So another consideration is that, we've got everything above the fold as I'm showing you, so that's good. However, so this is discover the new display of the Galleria Nazionale dell'Umbria. I always also recommend that there must be one call to action on the final site. This is a call to action. The problem with it is that it doesn't look like one. It looks like a heading. So if you always should have signifiers that are clearly signifiers. So this is actually a link, and there's nothing telling you that it is a link. So my suggestion is to at least underline it, which doesn't look great, but it will be better for accessibility and for usability. Now, if I go further down, it looks a bit more the way we designed it, which has the exhibitions and events and so on, because it's a gallery that has lots of events. So if I click on this, it takes us to the new display. So what we wanted was to have a really clean design, talking about the actual graphic interface. Because when you work with cultural institutions or anything that's image-based, it's not really about your design. It has to be about the artwork. So I love all this white space. I really love it. This typeface, which is called diatype, it's a grotesque, which is a type of sans serif typeface that is the same one that the old site used. What you might find interesting is that we're using a serif for the titles and a sans serif for the text. And I find this very, very readable because I'm actually looking at this at 100%. And unlike what I usually need to do, I usually need to make websites bigger, and I don't have to do that here. So well done us. And as you can see, we do paragraphs, and I would say that the lines are just about right. I wouldn't any longer, and they're borderline any longer, and they wouldn't be accessible. Do I like this slider here? There's no commands for it. No, I don't. It wasn't our choice. It wasn't our decision. And I'm not sure that anybody ever uses this because there's no visible commands for it. However, it's a step forward from the unstoppable slider that we had in the original version of the website. So that's a good. So out of curiosity, let's just use the wave tool, which tells you basic accessibility facts. And it tells us here 19 errors, and so 0 contrast errors. Hey! So let's see what the actual, empty buttons. Okay, see? All the errors are basically from the slider. So I want to show you the original idea of our site. Well, I've shown you this, which was, in my opinion, a little bit more useful. But anyway, a couple of months before the launch, actually maybe 3 months, the gallery just said, no, we absolutely want a big image on the front. So we had to abandon this idea, which we had been going with for a long time, because the structure of the site was really a team effort and we worked on it a lot. Now, I want to show you what our idea was for pages. So we'd have pages that were introduced by, and I apologize for Lorem Ipsum. We never really used it. It was completely content driven. But we used this big typographical intro, which I absolutely loved, followed by a big image and then a more sort of normal layout. This is not a heading, because we have done this with a UX writer. So we made sure to style everything correctly so that the heading structure is correct. And so we have a beautiful typeface, typography. And also this image is a little bit too stretched here, followed by paragraphs that explain where we are and what happens and so on. Again, here I find these paragraphs as a little bit too wide. They should be boxed in a way that doesn't allow them to go so wide. But I can assure you that this is a minor detail in the scheme of things. So to us, this contrast with the beautiful typeface, which is called GT Super, and it's from Grilly Type, which is a great foundry. It's a mixture of old and new typefaces, and I love how stylish it is. Do you know what X height is? That's an X, and the height of the X is actually what determines the height of the whole typeface. And you can tell here, so when you got ascenders and descenders, so above the ideal line that goes on the top and the bottom of the X, anything that goes above that is an ascender, and it's short. And anything that goes below that is a descender. So if you look at the Y, it's also quite short, which means that you can get quite nice line height. You don't need to go too high with the line height, which means that your content is displayed in a much more cohesive manner. So the eye doesn't get lost in between the lines, as it were. So that's why I really loved it for this kind of typographic effect. It also depends very much on the content that you put there. And even though we'd studied the content quite a lot with a content designer and UX writer, it hasn't always translated that well to the live site. Like, this is way shorter than we would have liked, but still it's beautiful. And I'm not sure if the staff is using the correct photos. So there's also that. It's how far a budget goes. So if I go here, see, here is 0 errors and the structure is good. I'll show you, for instance, the library. We had it much longer, and I would have a call to action here. Our library is at your service. When I am able to work on this again, I would recommend that we put a call to action of some sort here, because the photo is nice, but it's unnecessarily big. We don't really need this. And what we really need is how to get to the library. And there's a lot of words here, but it doesn't explain that clearly where the gallery is and so on. So I would change that, definitely. Not change, I would improve on that and make it easier for people to get to the gallery. I don't want to be too critical of our own work. I think this is an incredible site. I think it's really beautiful. The gallery is amazing. I'm just telling you that we're still working on it. I'm sure you understand why I'm feeling. It's an interesting case, isn't it? So this is a very simple layout, but it's a layout that privileges white space and therefore makes it easier for the eye to wander. And here we'd planned these accordions, which again, accordions may have accessibility or SEO issues, but not if you do them correctly. So you can do them, you just need to code them correctly with ARIA. In terms of the aesthetical and graphical point of view, this is what we're going for. Beautiful typography, content that's really easy to absorb and navigate and understand. So I'm just going to show you the collection. Again, here's another piece of work that we want to do. There is going to be an intro piece and also a bit of guidance as to how to navigate this, because not everyone is going to know what they want to look at. And if you're not an expert art historian, you may not know what a political is. A political is simply a painting that's made of more than one panel. We spent a long time understanding how to design the description of an artwork, because it has so many moving pieces to it, including a description. Accessibility was very important, so we had an SEO description, a description for completely blind people. So as you can see here, the typography of this is beautiful. And so this is one, for instance, this is something that is not that great, because this doesn't necessarily, this is a signifier that should look interactive, and it does a bit because it has a shadow that, but then when you hover on it, I'd rather see it, it sort of disappears a bit. So I would prefer if it were a little bit more obviously interactive. So this is the artwork, and this is something again that very much depends on the database that it's drawing the information from. However, we had also accounted for a lot more information. So a description, the sound, the place of origin of the work, a bibliography, exhibitions, and so on. So not every work description will have the same information there. So that was, again, something that we had to contend with, because it was important that the description would look okay, regardless of how much information there was. I'm quite happy about that. So now here we are in the menu, so we know that it's interactive. It's the familiarity tells us these are links. However, I would make them look like links a little bit more, and I would have a hover effect. The museum, they love minimalism as far as design goes, and I love it too, but I feel like it could be a little, like, for instance, these are links. They don't have the correct hover effect, but they are clearly links. So I would kind of maybe prefer for the links to work. Let's go to events. Let's see what happens here. This was a very complicated page to plan, because what's an event and what's an activity are exhibitions events. So we had to consider a lot when we were designing this. I'm quite happy with this. So here now we've only got an archive. Clearly there are no events coming up, or maybe the staff haven't had time to update it. And here is where there's a bit of an issue, because it's very low contrast. These are tabs. They are meant to be interactive. They're a little bit too pale for my liking, and then when I hover over them, they sort of disappear. And I know that this is one of the points that are going to be sorted out. So do not worry, we will sort them out. So it says 0 contrast errors, but it is a bit of an error there. So that's something that I feel the Wave tool doesn't pick up on, and it probably should. Let's see what happens when you go to the archive. So these are what the events look like. Very simple layout. And again, we've got the problem here. So I guess that this one, it will come up with 20 errors because of the slider. But again, this is something that we are going to sort out. We have a checklist of things that are going to be sorted out. But look at what a lively gallery this is. They have so much going on all the time, and they have to look after that. But it's so beautiful, and they also do music in there. If you visit Italy, I recommend it really, really warmly. It's a great place. This is the Learn section, which again is one of the ones that we will greatly expand when we do the next chunk of work. Now, one of the things that is in our list is that I want this type to be boxed so that it ends here. I want this column to have a max width, because these lines are too long. So yes, I am working with a very, very wide browser window, but still it shouldn't look like this. I am super proud of this, and I see everything as a demonstration of the fact that web design is iterative. You cannot launch a site and then go, right, that's it. There is so much more that you have to take into consideration. There are a lot of issues that only come up when you've tested, and we've only done basic testing. An expert review, which is what I would do, is already a form of testing. And I have done that, and we have a checklist of things that we're going to improve on. Now, obviously, I'm showing it to you, so I know that some of you are experts, and I'm saying, yeah, I know that. I am pointing those things out, and also I think that we should be honest about our work. But I feel like it's such a great example of how a design that you feel is perfect when it's in Figma, actually then when you apply it, it needs to be changed because of a number of constrictions. One of them being client's taste and client's requirements. So there's also that. They've invested a lot of money in their beautiful imagery. They want it displayed, they want for it to take center stage. So that's something that's really important, and it is also part of UX. So that's what we did. And also this green is part of their colors, and it's taken from the images. One of the features that we're going to roll out for the catalog in the future is an image palette. So there's loads more that it's happening, and there's something that I want to show you that will happen in the next phase, and that we did with Balsamiq. When you, instead of just having a link to a Google map on how to get to the gallery, we have things like how you, in a form of an interactive quiz. So different options that take you to a solution, whether you get via public transport or via car. But then something else that we are developing with the gallery staff is visiting guides that I think I told you about before, but just in case you didn't watch the previous slide. So the first question is how much time you will spend in Perugia. 2 hours, 1 day, 3 days. Now, we've only done 1 day properly for now. So let's say you have 1 day. What do you like the most? Do you like architecture, painting, sculpture, or all of the above? Do you want to walk long distance, short distance? Not at all. So if you want to walk long distance, then we have a set of things that you can do, including stops in, if you're tired, you can stop in a bar and so on. So these are all itineraries that we are going to develop. They take a long time to work out because it took us a day to even just do one. But I feel like they will be such a great addition to the site, and they will make the site be a part of the experience, of the real life experience, because that's the thing with the museum. You're creating a site for something that is actually also a living and breathing organism. And that's why the appearance of the site is so important, because a museum is about substance, it's about history, but it's also about appearance. It's about the artworks and what they look like, and so on. So there's a lot more underneath, and there's a lot more that can be enjoyed out of an artwork, even if you don't see it, if you're not able to see it. And that's why the gallery has such good descriptions for those who are unable to see, and that there's a lot of audio material, and there's lots of music as well. So there's that. But also it is important, if you are able to see, that the graphic display is in tune with the place. And I feel that we've done that with a beautiful typography. In a nutshell, big takeaways and big lessons from this. Things are never as perfect in the actual site as they are in the Figma. Luckily, nothing is set in stone with the site, so you keep tweaking and improving. Perfect is the enemy of good, so launching is good, so that you carry on improving it. Listen to your clients, because they will have insights that you don't have. And also bear in mind that they don't always have the capacity to work with you. That's also very, very important to bear in mind. Make sure that your site is enjoyable by everyone and usable for everyone. So even though there are always tweaks to be made with regards, to perfect usability, it's so much better to have a simple site that everyone can use. And I'm proud of that, because this is a simple site that everyone can use, and it does look beautiful as well. Thank you so much, and I hope to come back with a further update on the new work that we've done to address all the possible issues and have an even better site. Thank you so much.